Where you are planted, watch the blossoms grow. Don't take it for granted, let your colors show. 'Cause I know that good fruit takes time to sow. Don't mind how big or small the room, just bloom.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another wonderful session at the Soaring Mothers Summit. I'm here with Emily McDermott. Welcome, Emily.
Thank you, Jessica. I'm very, very excited to be here.
I am so excited that you're here. We're going to be talking about 5 ways to reduce the overwhelm, overcome the overwhelm. So, Emily, how about we just start by just like letting people know who you are, what you do, and what motherhood looks like for you right now.
Sure. So I am a mom to 2 boys, ages 5 and 3. My oldest is about to start kindergarten in a couple days. And this phase of motherhood is very interesting because I've been waiting these 5 years for him to be going off to school. It's full-time kindergarten. And part of me is very excited about this new milestone. And then, of course, there's the part of you that's very kind of like emotional and wistful about these new milestones. So that is very exciting. And I'm primarily a writer. I write poetry, custom poetry. I also blog about minimalism and simple living and intentional living habits, which is how you and I connected. And I also am the creator of a course called Moms Overcoming Overwhelmed, geared mostly towards moms with kids in a similar season that I am, in ages 5 and under. But really, the principles can be used to a mom in any season of her motherhood. So, yeah, that's a little about me.
Well, thank you so much. So, I would love to hear why this topic of overwhelm is personal to you. Like, what was your story there?
Yeah, definitely. So overwhelm has kind of followed me in every season of motherhood, even before I became a mom. So part of my story is my husband and I struggled with unexplained infertility. And at that time, I was really feeling overwhelmed with just sort of the work and to-dos and wanting to become pregnant and not understanding why it wasn't happening. And so it was at that time I really discovered simplifying and minimalism and decluttering and these types of things, which really helped me initially. And we were lucky enough to conceive and then had not only one boy, but two, as I mentioned. But during those kind of phases of having a newborn and then having two under two, which we weren't expecting, and then, just the tantrums and everything that you deal with as a mom, I was so grateful for sort of this foundational knowledge of how to remove unnecessary things, which to me is the basis of overwhelm, that we have too much of something. It may be too much physical stuff. It may be too many to-dos. It may be too much going around in our heads, right? That is just ping, 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 constantly, not sure where to start. And that feeling of overwhelm, which is like the I don't know where to start feeling. And I have had that at various seasons, and I will still have it now, but I have the tools to understand, okay, what decisions do I need to remove? What do I have to literally eliminate? Or the framework I use is eliminate first what you can, delegate what you're able to, and then start automating so you can free up these resources that are so important to us as moms. Time, obviously, and then energy is another huge one, and focus, where we just, lack of sleep, all of these different things going on, we feel so unfocused. So that's really why it's so personal to me, because I see it in your context of surviving to thriving. The only way we can get from surviving to thriving is if we have the time, energy, and focus to be able to move along that continuum. So that's where my heart really is.
Love that. Okay, so let's talk about those 5 steps that you're talking about. So someone's feeling overwhelmed, they're feeling overwhelmed. with the stuff or with their mind or with all those things? What are those steps that you would recommend?
Sure. The first is we're going to start from our baseline kind of assessment. And I don't want you looking at the whole day and going, oh my gosh, my whole day is a disaster. You may feel that way, but starting with a very small chunk of time, like what is the time of day that is the absolute craziest and most overwhelming to you? I'm going to use the example of from when you wake up to when your kids go to school or when you start homeschooling, depending on your situation. That tends to be a pretty hectic time because there's a lot of like logistical things going on. So let's say that's like a 2-hour block maybe of time. We're just going to look at that and look at, okay, what is actually happening in that block of time, like the minutia of what is going on, and kind of making very quick notes about it. You don't have to write a diary about it, but just kind of a quick note. But more importantly, how you're feeling. I think this is really key. And sometimes we just hurry through to kind of get to the next thing. We're not realizing, oh, it is really stressing me out that my kids are the ones that wake me up every day. And that really kind of makes me feel like I'm not starting my day on the right foot. Or the fact that I'm figuring out what I'm going to wear and I have kids asking me, Mom, can you help me with this? Then I feel really frazzled, So start writing down a couple of notes of how you're feeling when all the things are happening. That is that first kind of assessment phase where I don't want you judging yourself and saying, oh my gosh, I can't believe I can't get myself together. And oh, this is just a disaster. The kids are always late when we're leaving. We're always late getting to school or whatever. Just do that initial assessment and kind of focus on how all those things are making you feel. So that's step number one.
Wonderful. What's step number two?
Step number two is to think about what your baseline kind of, someone I follow uses the term fundamental needs, which I really like. Whatever the fundamental needs are for that time block. And I really want you to limit it to 2 or 3. Now, there may be many more, but because overwhelm comes from too much to do, right? And too much stuff, we do not want to overwhelm ourselves in the pursuit of overcoming it, right? So let's start like super small with, okay, the 3 things that I want to do are make my bed, wash my face, and read one Bible verse. Now they don't have to all be things having to do with your, let's say, self-care or your needs, but I would recommend that at least a couple of them are, because in each of your time blocks during the day, you want to make sure that you are getting those fundamental needs, whatever they are, taken care of. So figure out what those top 2 to 3 things are. Those are your non-negotiables. That no matter what's going on and no matter what day of the week or anything like that, those are the things that you feel like, okay, I'm not always getting these things done right now, but I feel reasonably sure that I can at some point I can do this. And they're really important to you. That's key. So that's step number 2.
Yeah. And I would love, so the thing about this that is so important is like, if you look at the whole day about all the needs that need to happen in the day, it is overwhelming. But when you break it down to those little chunks, it's like, no, it's pretty clear. Like the goal, like the end goal right now is getting ready for school. So what needs to happen to get ready for school, right? Like, so it's like really narrowing down the purpose of that time so that you get clear about what actually needs to happen.
Yeah. And I don't think it's good to necessarily start with a lot of timestamps in that block of time. You are going to have an ideal time when you're either getting out the door or you are starting homeschool for the day. You should have like a general idea of when that is. And then it's always good, in my opinion, to work backwards from there, right? And try to say, okay, I would like, breakfast to be done approximately by this time if we're going to get out the door. You don't necessarily have to tell your kids that, depending on their age, but you're kind of running the ship, right? So kind of move backwards from that time when you definitely want to be like pulling out of, the driveway, allowing a little bit of buffer space. That's really important too. Part of being overwhelmed sometimes to me is being rushed. So like allowing yourself a little bit of buffer time and really starting small with those non-negotiables. Don't be like, I'm going to read 5 chapters of the Bible, or I'm going to, write 10 pages in a journal. No, you're writing a sentence, you're reading a verse. You have to start small. And the reason that you're like, why does everyone say start small, Emily and Jessica? Why does everyone say start small? Because you have to wire it into your brain that this is a new thing you're doing, and it's making a positive impact in your physiology. The dopamine is like, I did a verse, woo, I wrote a sentence, woo, on to the next thing. And right, you get the snowball effect of that momentum, which is so incredibly key. So do not be an overachiever when you're starting to do this.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, the big thing I teach is go slow to make it stick, right?
Yes. Oh, I love that. I have told other people that before. I totally credit you.
Thank you. No, but it's good. It's good. It's essential, right? Like that's the essential thing. Okay, what's now step number 3?
Okay, so now this is where sort of that framework I was telling you that I teach comes into play, which is the eliminate, delegate, automate. And I personally feel like that is a logical way to start, because my jam is eliminating unnecessary decisions. I talk about it all the time because you don't really think about all the decisions that you make in a given day. Supposedly the number's 35,000, but could be more, could be less. But from when you wake up to when the kids are going to school, what are all the decisions you're making for yourself and for your family, and what can be removed? Brainstorm these things. Think big. Like, wow, maybe I, can change my wardrobe so that I am rotating the same 7 shirts and pairs of shorts in a given week, just to try it out for a couple weeks. Do the same for your kids. Having meal plans that you are repeating the same weekly meal plan. So really you only need 4 weekly meal plans, right? So you already know that the night before. Anything that you feel like is something that you're doing on a regular basis in that 2 to 3 hour time block, what can either be removed, or the other part of that, of course, is delegated. A lot of times, as moms, I'm speaking for myself perhaps, but I think for others, especially stay-at-home moms, I think, okay, well, this is my job. This is my job to get breakfast ready. This is my job to clean up the kitchen after breakfast. But one thing that I really appreciate about you, Jessica, and what you've done with your children, even at such a young age, is that you are empowering them to be involved in the chores and the household responsibilities, especially after breakfast. I remember you mentioning that. And that is great, because it's not like, oh, just just play while mommy cleans up the whole kitchen. It doesn't need to be that way. And it actually, you can speak to this better than I can. It doesn't take that long to start those little bits of things that you're starting to teach them. Again, starting small with them. And then that begins to snowball. And then it becomes part of your family culture that you can celebrate. That's another big thing, celebrating that we're doing this as a family. So the eliminating the decisions, delegating what you can, not being shy to have that conversation with your spouse and or children. And then the automating, which is where you and I definitely love this part, the habits and routines aspect. I just finished reading Tiny Habits by BJ Fogg. Have you read it?
Not that one. No, tell me.
Okay.
What did you discover?
So Tiny Habits, similar in some ways to Atomic Habits by James Clear, but he's really big on the smallest possible action and celebration. Those are the 2 big things. The example he gives is he wanted to start flossing his teeth. He didn't have that as a habit. He started with 1 tooth. And everyone's like, 1 tooth? 1 push-up? Like, that just seems like silly, right? But it's the wiring of the brain, and then celebrating, like actually celebrating. When you do something new and a new routine, how many of us are actually celebrating it? We feel silly, right? We're not like, if my kid is potty training and he actually gets all the pee in the potty that day, I'm like running around, woo, good job, buddy, woohoo. But we don't do that for ourselves, right? So when you start having these incremental little things that you're starting to build into a routine, really make sure you're celebrating that. The other aspect is,
Well, and can I just speak to
oh,
the
yeah,
celebrating
please
really
do.
fast? So with the
Yes.
celebrating too, like it doesn't have to be running around the house for everything.
Mhm.
Like in the Thriving in Motherhood Planner, it's just every month you're writing down, what did you discover? What did you learn? What did you accomplish? What did you read? Where did you go? What did you do with your family? Like just writing it down, or habit tracking, right? I flossed a tooth, check. Like that is a way to slow down and do that celebrating, because it stamps in our brain when we write it down that that was significant. And that's where some of that rewiring takes place, and start closing those loops.
Oh,
So
definitely. That's something I've
yeah,
definitely learned from you, is the looking back at the previous month and being like, well, what did I actually do? And, how did I, and when you're starting to build some of these routines, it's like, oh, great. Well, I did have the kids, help. They brought their dishes to the sink for 5 days in a row or something like that. That's something you can celebrate too, right? It doesn't just have to be
yeah,
what you're doing personally, but whatever is adding to the routines of the family. The other thing is just keeping in mind where your energy levels are,
Mm.
not only on a daily basis, but also on a monthly basis. I just became kind of familiar with cycle syncing and sort of your menstrual cycle. So if you're able to say, okay, doing a deep clean of my house is important to me, but maybe I'm going to shift that more to when I have the most energy,
Mm.
rather than working against myself and my physiology and then feeling bad about myself because I'm not getting this new routine in. So part of it is during the day, with when you have the highest energy levels and what your like your chronotype is, which is when you should do things based upon your circadian rhythm. Also maybe your menstrual cycle possibly, and also just kind of like what works for you. I know that you're big on the power nap.
Yep.
And so if you need the power nap, like that's great. Don't be scheduling all of your high energy, high focus activities in that early afternoon time frame, right? Like know thyself,
Yeah,
right?
no, yeah, no. If you need a nap, just take a nap.
Yeah.
Don't try and be
that's
productive.
that's really the what this all breaks down to.
Yeah.
Overwhelm. Just take a nap when
Take a
you
nap.
nap. No, we wish it was that simple, but yeah, you really have to understand where it makes sense, and the whole like tweaking aspect.
Yeah.
If you need to adjust something, try it in a different part of the day and see if it makes a difference. So that's really what I would recommend for the kind of implementation of getting those non-negotiables in where you want them to be.
Yeah. So I guess kind of just recapping and pulling out some of these principles. It's like start super small, go slow, don't try and do it all at once. Be willing to experiment. Like if it's not working or it feels really hard, try it at a different time during the day. And just like starting to raise your level of awareness about when you have energy to do things. Was that a good recap of
Oh,
some of
definitely.
those things?
Yeah. And just like you said, like the celebrating in the way that makes sense for you. And it can just be like in your head, like, hey, good job, or like that was awesome that you did that, or
Or even just taking that moment to acknowledge the feeling. Like my teeth
yeah.
feel so good now that I flossed them. Like
Yes.
that's my
Yeah.
payoff. I have clean teeth and it feels awesome.
Right, because in order for those routines to stick, and that's another thing in tiny habits, which makes so much sense. When you want to change the behavior of yourself or someone else, it's done when you feel good. You want to do something, right?
Mm.
And so that's something to remember, that telling ourselves good job or somebody else or any of that kind of celebratory stuff, which I don't normally do. So that was kind of like a wake up call for me. Like if there's some of these things I'm having a hard time with, am I actually realizing, like if I don't drink enough water during the day, which is my big thing, it just has plagued me for years. When I'm done drinking that tall glass of water, wow, that feels really good to actually have had all of that water right now. Like you said, savor the feeling.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think that those are probably, I'm just looking at my notes here, probably all of the things that I would recommend. And then when you feel kind of confident in a certain time block, then you can start moving on to some of the other ones that are kind of the sore spots of the day, like before dinner time, I know is like a big one for people. So yeah, I think that's it.
Okay. I like that. Okay. So did we cover what step? Because I think, did we go through all 5 steps? I don't.
I think I did like 3 and then I kind of like
Okay. So let's just like list them out.
summarized.
So it's like super clear. Okay. So
Yeah.
step 1 was just like assess, like just be aware of what's going on, where things aren't working. Is that right? Where the overwhelm is coming from?
Yeah. And
Okay.
step 2 is to figuring out like your top 3 non-negotiables, whatever those might be. Your two.
Okay. Can I just give another example, like how
Yeah.
simple it can be? Like for me, we have to have a smoothie at like 9:30 or 10. Otherwise everybody falls apart. Like just that extra snack, you know? So like a
Yes.
snack. So like even your like snack placement might be your non-negotiable of like, if I don't have this, nothing else happens the rest of the
Yeah,
day.
that's so true. Oh my gosh. Yes, that's how it works in my house too.
Yeah. It probably works in everybody's houses that way. We all have like
Okay.
kids that get hungry and
Oh
then
my
we get
gosh.
hungry and, you
All the
know,
snacks all the
all the
time.
snacks. But just,
Okay,
I mean, just like simplify, right? Like you don't have to be
yes,
thinking huge here. Like it could be when your snack is. That could be your non-negotiable.
totally, totally.
Okay.
And so the third would be to eliminate or delegate the things that you can. So you're able to say, okay, this is what's like in the time block or on my plate right now. What can I take off of it? And then whatever, whenever you're done with that, to be able to figure out, okay, where are my non-negotiables going in the time block?
Okay. So
you've had
step
this.
3 is, okay, wait, sorry.
That's okay.
So step 3 is the identify or eliminate and delegate. And then step 4 is figuring out where they go.
Yes, where they go
Where
within
they
the
go.
time block, the non-negotiables. And then
Okay.
step 5 would be the automation of it.
Awesome.
And sort of
And that's the making it the routine and the habit. And where we talked about
and kind of
celebrating and
tweaking
reinforcing.
it and, you know, figuring out, okay, is this working well here? Or does this need to be moved? And just being flexible to, like you said, experiment.
That's awesome. Okay. So we kind of gave some like basic little examples throughout here, but why don't you share maybe what one of your time blocks looked like and like what
Sure.
this looked like? So like, why don't you talk us through, why don't we talk through the dinner one?
Okay.
Cause I grew up, this is piranha hour, right?
Oh
Like
my
this
gosh.
is when it's so, cause everyone's tired and everyone's hungry. So, all right, what have you done to like with this whole decreasing overwhelm around the dinner hour?
Totally. Okay, we talked about moving back, working backwards, right?
Yeah.
So I know that I want to have my kids like in bed, hopefully lights out ish at 7:30. That's like our like sweet spot time. And I know that I want to be making dinner at 4:30 in order for us to be able to eat and bath and bed and all of that. So I know that that's kind of what my target is for that. We have a routine already where the boys are cleaning up all of the toys a little bit before that time. So that is kind of like a anchor time in the day. Whatever we end up doing during the day, I want to be back by around 4:30, a little before. And once that's completed, then I've already know in advance what I'm making for dinner. And in the summertime, we are very, very simple. Part of it is because my husband's gluten-free, but even if he wasn't, we grill something, some sort of meat or poultry, and have a vegetable with that. That's it. Very boring. And I like it that way. And the other thing is you have very, very minimal cleanup. So I'm able to preheat the grill while the kids are either cleaning up or in the midst of that. I am very intentional with when they're able to watch any sort of show. And when I'm making dinner is like one of those times in the day. And so they're kind of not going to come up while I'm cooking and that sort of thing. So that they're taken care of. I'm able to make sort of the simple meal. And because it's so simple, there's very limited cleanup after that. If there's anything, we're training them to be bringing their plates over, you know, to me and that sort of thing. And then they're spending time with my husband while I'm cleaning up. And we do some sort of evening activity together that does not involve toys. So that might be reading or doing a game or something like that, where that's all on the main floor. So we're not going down to where the toys are anymore. And then we're going up for the bath and bed routine. So really for me, it's eliminating the decisions about kind of what we're doing in that time block. It's pretty predictable. Also what I'm cooking, I really take the decisions out of that, and simplifying any sort of evening cleanup and knowing as long as I've wiped down like the counters and the table and I get the dishes in the dishwasher, I consider that a win for
Oh yeah,
block of
that's a
time.
huge one. That's a huge one. Yeah, yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So does that make sense? Was there anything you
Yeah.
think I missed? Okay.
No, of course. No, this was awesome. No, and I think that's so powerful because, and that's such a great example of what you guys have done because you've eliminated decisions and you've just like streamlined it, right? So everyone knows what to expect, which is great for you because the overwhelm decreases. But I would guess bedtime also goes better because the kids know what's going on too. Like it's very predictable.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think that's when we look at decreasing the overwhelm, we might start feeling selfish, like, oh, it's about me and what I can handle. But the nice thing is that it blesses everybody in our family. Like everyone wins when the overwhelm decreases.
Yeah. I mean, if you're thinking about, the question is, do you think it's selfish to preserve your time, energy, and focus? If you think that that's a selfish thing, I would recommend having a mindset shift in that area, because, there's a lot of talk about filling your cup and all of these analogies. You can come up with all of those things for sure. But for me, it's that these are my resources and they're limited. And once they are depleted, I am not the mom that I want to be, and I'm not the wife that I want to be. And I notice a huge difference in how I show up for my family. And that is like the basis of the person I want to be, is how I'm showing up, in my day to day. So do not think about that as a selfish thing. If your kids like mine, I say, hey, what do you guys want to have for dinner? Because I don't always, they don't always eat like the steak and the things that we have. And they're like, oatmeal. Great. I'm okay with that. Do you know why? Because they're happy. It's one less decision I have to worry about. It's simple. And it's not like they're like, oh, we want to have, I'm trying to think of like the worst possible thing, like pixie sticks and Twizzlers for dinner, I mean, it's just like, it's oatmeal. It's fine. And I don't have to feel guilty that it's simple, or guilty that they're not having this like perfectly curated meal. They're happy. I'm happy. I have energy to be the person I want to be around them. And that's all. That's it. Right.
Yeah. Emily, thank you so much. That is such a powerful note to end on. So thank you so much for being part of the summit and coming and sharing some of your expertise and experience with all of us.
You are so welcome. I always love chatting with you.
Yeah, it's a delight. Well, thank you so much for joining us for this conversation about reducing overwhelm. If you want some help, this day is all about structure, the pillar of structure, and it's about automating those necessary and essential things, just like we talked about. And the way that I've kind of approached this is with the Simplify to Soar Club, because I got to the point where I had a vision for my life. I knew what I wanted and I was living it. I had nurtured my soul and was able to kind of get things in place so that I could start enjoying and feeling fulfilled in my days and feel that peace and contentment and joy. But then I was looking around me and my house was still, no, it had fires. I felt like everything was a fire. When we get to the meals, it was a fire. When we get to the next thing, it was always like these fires that I had to put out. And it was so frustrating. It was so overwhelming. And so I needed a house that was going to support and serve me and my family in my journey to being this soaring mother, so that I could use my gifts and talents, so that I could focus on meaningful relationships. So I had time to connect with God, so that we could enjoy life as an adventure. I needed our house to support us. And so Simplify to Soar Club is about doing the things we talked about today, which is you go slow to make it stick. You do one tiny thing every month to just simplify all of these different things. Simplify your laundry, simplify your meals, simplify how you take care of your floors, simplify your morning routine, we're just simplifying it. So if this is interesting to you, it's one short audio listen, one small task each month. And over the course of the year, you are going to have a home that supports you in your journey to becoming a soaring mother, and supports your family and helping each of them grow and learn and thrive in your home. So go ahead and check that out. Or again, you can get this all with the Soaring Mothers Toolkit and the all access pass to the summit. There's options for whatever your needs are. So thanks for being here. And I will see you in another session of the Soaring Mothers Summit today.
Oh, smother, just